On tonight's edition of the CHGO Cubs Related podcast, we are a week away from baseball at beautiful historic Wrigley Field. Brendan and I will break down the end of spring training and get you ready for the 2026 regular season on tonight's edition of the CHGO Cubs Related podcast. This is the CHGO Cubs Related podcast. My name is Corey. I am joined, as always, by Brendan. We are coming to you on Thursday. It is March 19th. And Brendan, a week to go, but this is the last time you and I will speak to the good folks of the CHGO Cubs community before the Cubs take the field and the 2026 season has begun. Can you believe that we are a week out?
I started to actually prepare for opening day far sooner than I typically do. So I've been going through the mental exercises like, hey, if the Cubs lose a late inning game, am I going to sit on my couch for 30 minutes frozen? Or am I going to be an adult and go on with my night? I still haven't actually figured out the coping mechanism to do it, but we're going to get there.
So all of our listeners who have been with us for pretty much more than 5 minutes know that the former is how that's going to go.
Probably.
Yeah. But
it happens at least twice a year. I was thinking about this on my car ride home, you just get in your own mind. You start thinking bad thoughts, you spiral. I don't want to do that this year.
I don't think March 26th against the Washington Nationals is going to be that point. But
listen, you got injuries early.
I do like that they build in that Friday buffer for either way. Like,
I hate
let me drown in them losing on opening day, or if they're 1-0, let me start looking at October dates and making sure I have them blocked on my calendar. You know what I mean?
I've turned down work trips because of October scheduling. I've legitimately turned down, I can't go. I have the middle of October planned out. So I'm ready to do it again this year.
Yeah, it has come upon us fast. But yeah, I will be there at beautiful historic Wrigley Field next Thursday, 1:20, Matthew Boyd on the hill. He will get his spring finale tomorrow on Friday to finish out his Cactus League slate. And then they're ready to go. So on tonight's episode, we'll take a look at where the roster stands. Obviously, a few things still to iron out, especially with the Seiya Suzuki news that we will dive into a little bit. I think since it all happened a few days ago, not much of an update, but I think as good of news as you could have hoped for, given that he was sent for an MRI. We will talk about roster, how it shapes up, expectations for the 2026 season, a little bit of a preview, maybe some predictions towards the end. Again, a week out, but this is the last time Brendan and I will be on. And yeah, we'll take a look at that. Where I want to start, though, Brendan, is for you and I to have an opportunity. I do want to talk about Daniel Palencia in the World Baseball Classic, obviously a few days removed from that. But it was nice, a lot of Cubs stuff. You and I have talked for years, having been in attendance several years ago at the World Baseball Classic, about how much fun it is, encouraging people to go if they have the chance, and just how fun I think the tournament can be, and especially a showcase for the game of baseball. And if you are a lover of the sport, I think I would be surprised if you don't enjoy at least some of the World Baseball Classic. But in addition, watching Bregman, PCA, Jameson Taillon for Canada, Javier Assad for Mexico. It was nice and really fits into our worldview that the tournament finds its way to ending up with the Chicago Cubs closer smack dab in the spotlight at the end of it all.
What a moment. And over the years, when big moments have happened for international players, I get roped in to their community. Japan, for example. Japanese Cubs Twitter and I are very friendly. I'll throw out a video of Seiya doing something or Shota doing something. Next thing you know, I got, dozens of Japanese baseball fans communicating with me. This was the first time because of Palencia that like Venezuelan fans communicated with me. And it points to the importance of moments like this and the growth of the sport. I had folks who were just casual sports fans talking about this, and they're mentioning Palencia. We were going from Palencia, who was in AAA last year, to being on the national stage, getting that moment, getting those spectacular shots, those videos of him celebrating.
Yeah.
And he's getting national recognition for it. I mean, what a moment. How fun is that?
Yeah. Really incredible. And I think, you just see it in the emotions in the players. Ronald Acuna Jr., tears coming down his face as they're, coming toward the final out. Daniel Palencia, tears coming down as they're getting toward the final out. I'm sure people maybe really strictly root for the country they're from, or maybe they stick to, hey, this team has the majority of the players that I'm familiar with, so I'm going to root for them. Whatever your rooting interest is, I think it's exciting to see the passion and how much it means to these guys. And again, just like you guys know me, hand up, like I don't care about spring training. I don't get anything out of it. But as a fan of the sport, a lifelong fan of baseball, it's just a fun thing to watch. The games were great, and seeing these players who, in some cases make so much money, and play for different teams, come together and wear that passion on their sleeve. It's excellent. And then, for him personally, I can't even imagine how much that means to Daniel Palencia. They all try to put it into words, but I imagine it's hard to articulate just what that means to them. And so for him to have that opportunity as a guy, I was reading too, like a guy that initially signs for like a $10,000 signing bonus, was not someone I don't think that was thought of to be sitting at 100 when he's coming out of the bullpen. Certainly not thought of at the beginning of his career, even when the Cubs traded Andrew Chafin for him as a guy who would be in this position. Our guy Niren in the chat pointing out too, like the U.S. stacking that last inning, some of the best left-handed hitters the country has to offer, mowing them down.
Yeah. So fun.
Yeah.
Even your dog Dex is like absolutely big Palencia fan over there. But the way he went about it too, throwing 100 miles per hour, the splitter he got Schwarber swinging at, you're seeing kind of a glimpse of what you may expect from Palencia as he continues to grow this year. We'll talk about that and other guys evolving. To me, one of like the Cubs related interpretations, if you will, is he's the closer. Like he is undoubtedly ready for the role. In some respects, what he did in the World Baseball Classic, it's all individualized. I don't want to put words in his mouth. That may have been more important to him than closing out a World Series. I don't want to put
a lot of guys said that it would be. Yeah.
I mean, Ronald Acuna, as you just said, hinted towards that. So for someone to come in to those spots, he had 4 saves in the World Baseball Classic and go lights out each and every time in the middle of March on a quick ramp up, facing the best hitters the countries have to offer without any hiccups. Beyond impressive, absolutely beyond impressive. And he's on a trajectory of being one of the best relievers in baseball. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, watching him, blow that fastball by guys, the way it moves and the way he was executing that. And, again, like this is the moment is about him and his country and his family and what they're feeling. Selfishly, as Cubs fans, like that's invaluable experience. You want this guy to be prepared to come out in the World Series and be that guy. Short of doing that, this feels like about as good of experience as you can get. The weight of his country, and they're feeling it that way on your shoulders. You're called upon to be the guy, again, going through some of the best left-handed hitters that the United States has to offer, and no fear, no sweat, nothing, just plows through it. So it's excellent experience. And Counsell said it too, like he was only able to be used in the save. Certainly, it's probably more high leverage, aggressive work than you'd want your closer to be taken in early March. But I think the tournament's been going on long enough. The Cubs have a little bit of experience, not quite as long, but, starting a little early, starting, stopping, in, early March last year. So I think, it's on them to have a plan for like, hey, this is some heavy usage earlier than he might be used to and earlier paced out than our season goes. Here's how we plan for that. And here's how we plan to keep him fresh and whatever. I also think, Brendan, it highlights, especially early in the year, the importance of some of those other bullpen guys rising to the top and being trustworthy. And Craig Counsell, especially with some of the bullpen turnover, being able to find those guys where maybe on a back-to-back save day, maybe Daniel Palencia gets a 1-run save on a Saturday. You come back on Sunday, Cubs are up 3 in the 9th. Not all the time, but maybe just early on, you have somebody else who you can say, hey, you know what? Today we can trust this guy.
I think the way, if you want to talk about the playoff implications, the September implications for Palencia pitching in March, I thought about this a lot. I would frame the 4 saves to back-to-back days as a risk, no doubt, but a risk I would have signed up for entering the World Baseball Classic. Let me explain why. The emotional experience that he has in that moment for having 4 appearances is invaluable. Now, when he goes in September or October and faces similar high leverage, similar implications, he can judge better what works, what didn't work. He can process the emotion better, that experience better. He can control, the adrenaline. And that's invaluable. You don't get opportunities as a Major League Baseball player to pitch in those environments when you're not playing Major League Baseball. You try to simulate those training environments. It never happens. He got that environment without any implication for the Cubs. I would have absolutely signed up for that. And is there a risk with the workload? Possibly. Is it absolutely going to deter him? No. We really don't know. Yeah. And it's one I would have signed up for.
Well, and certainly and I think Craig Counsell sort of alludes to this. Good, you can pry that opportunity out of his cold, dead hand. They had want that opportunity whether the Cubs like it or not. The Cubs set some parameters, but sometimes you got to defer to the personal aspect of it, right? These guys are humans. It's extremely important to them. And I don't think it should have any, I don't think it should have any negative, and I think it should have some big time positive, as you're alluding to, implications for the Cubs.
I mean, I always, I always talk about the emotional effect this has, the experience, put these guys to the fire. They put him to the fire and he came out
and he walked right through it. Yeah. Before we hit our first ad break, just touching quickly on Seiya. When we come back from the ad break, we can transition into kind of the implications, but obviously, a slight knee strain there, his PCL, I believe, on the head first slide. Everybody seemed pretty pleased with the results. Craig Counsell saying they got great news. He's still doing baseball activities. He spoke, sort of saying I'm taking it day by day, seeing what I can do, the pain threshold, all that other stuff. And, so hopefully not a significant thing. If he starts, a short IL stint, Brendan, 10 days or something like that, I really don't care about that. The important thing, especially when you're seeing him limp off the field, they're scheduling an MRI, there's that period of uncertainty. It's just that he's right and healthy for the long haul. And if he misses some April games, especially, if it's 45 degrees against the Washington Nationals at Wrigley Field at the end of March, so be it. The concern is long-term and him being healthy and that slugger that the Cubs need for the long haul of this season.
The injury was described as minor in nature. So I'll take that. Relatively speaking, you don't want to have any injury, but if you're going to have something come up, you want it described as minor in nature. They can also backtrack it 3 days. So if they do put him on the IL, they can say, okay, well, we'll do it, 3 days before opening day, which makes it only 7 days. That's a possibility. I'm not going to say they're going to do it, but to make sure everything is fine and clicking, cold weather, it may make sense just to do it for 7 days.
Well, and just to make sure, you want that strength full, for the rest of the year. They have no reason to press this. So heal up, make sure you're at 100% and
then
make
go
sure
hit 40 home runs.
Go have a great season. I think the fact that this is hopefully not some significant or long-term thing is the important thing. And then when we come back from this first ad break, we can talk about kind of the implications, even if it's a short IL stint to start the year. We're still waiting on the exact, and that might be a thing they take day by day here. But there would be some implications, even if they were for just a short time, especially with some of these guys that are battling to make the roster. So we'll take our first ad break here and we'll be back in a minute.
Good, better, best. Chicago is home to the most iconic three-word slogan in American sports. But today, Bet365 is honoring the shirtless rally cry with a three-word motto of their own: early payout offer. Here's the deal. If the team you're riding goes up by 10 points at any point in the game, Bet365 pays out your bet right there and then. Is Bet365 or winning is everything? Once you finally turn off Lower Whacker and get yourself service back, download the app. If you're a new user, they're running a massive promo. Bet $5, get $150 back in bonus bets. Just deposit $10, place a $5 bet. It's easier than riding the red line from Addison to 35th. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Please gamble responsibly. Must be present in Illinois. $10 minimum deposit required. Bonus bet wager exclusive from returns. New customers only. 21 and over. Time limits, minimum odds, and terms and conditions do apply. Void where prohibited. Last summer, Corey, I sat on my sunglasses on a perfect day. The Cubs even won, and I almost let it ruin my day because I love those sunglasses. But then I found Shady Rays, and it completely changed the game for me. These are sunglasses made for real life. We're talking seriously good-looking, high-quality polarized lenses that are durable enough to survive, well, me. And the best part, they aren't stupidly expensive. Here is the wild part, though. Their protection program, if you lose or break your shades, just like me, even on day one, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair. No guilt trip. No, I told you so, just replacements. It's the ultimate safety net for your face. So now I actually wear my sunglasses without fear on hikes, concerts, on the water, wherever the day takes me. Shady Rays is the eyewear that actually has your back. Go to shadyrays.com. Use code CHGOSR for 40% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. That's code CHGOSR at shadyrays.com.
All right, folks, back with you. Want to continue. Again, hopefully, if Seiya's there on opening day, great. If they decide to, do a short stint, keep him fresh, I think that's fine too. And, honestly, Brendan, if it would be a short stint, but if there's even a potential silver lining, if they have to get a few days worth of a look, and it would be a small sample still at one of these depth outfielders that they're considering carrying, maybe, they would carry 2 if Seiya started on the injured list. There's worse things. It's hard for some of these guys, they're making a decision off of how these guys look in spring training games, workouts, things like that. Past career performance, etc., and trying to make those decisions for who they should keep. Maybe if they have to waive certain guys, risk losing them if they opt out, etc., etc. So even though it would be a short period, there's worse things than getting at least a quick look at how these guys do at the MLB level, how they fare at Wrigley Field. And, maybe that helps to inform the longer term decision, even if it's only, 5 or 6 games or something like that.
Should we rip into the roster decisions for the positional side? Should I show this complex
I suppose.
chart?
Yeah.
Should we rip into it? Okay. So here's the way I kind of envision the next week being decided for the roster. So if you look at this chart, if you're on the Spotify or Apple feed, come on over to YouTube. We have everything broken down here. Right now, we need to fill 13 spots. So in dark blue is what I think it's going to end up for the bench. So we know our 9 starters. What is the bench going to look like? Well, we have Matt Shaw. We have Moises Ballesteros, Dylan Carlson, and Michael Conforto rounding out those 4 spots. What about Chas McCormick? What about Kevin Alcantara? What about Johnny Long, James Triantos, and so on? One of those guys may get a spot if Seiya does go on the injured list. So the question is, well, who would that be? Would it be Chas McCormick? Maybe. But there is a clause in his contract that if he plays 11 days at the big league level, then he can say, you know what? I'm not going back down to AAA. So do you want to start that clock now, or do you want to give Kevin Alcantara a look? Have him be a defensive replacement late in the game. Give Matt Shaw time in right field, or give Moises Ballesteros more at-bats at the DH spot. Those are the decisions the Cubs will have to make over the next week. What I think is a guarantee at this point is Michael Conforto, come on down. You're going to be on the roster. Dylan Carlson, come on down. You're going to be on the roster. You're going to make $2 million guaranteed on day one. You are now a bench spot for your Chicago Cubs, backing up left field, center field, and right field. And frankly, like, those are the guys I would want to see. And it does make sense when you start considering the depth possibilities that Counsell wants to have throughout the season. I think those are the options. Do you have a different preference who you want to see get the last bench spot or get the opportunity should Seiya go on the IL?
I don't think so. I mean, looking around, like some of the discussions, I think there's people that want to see Kevin Alcantara get run at some point, but at this point in the exercise, and we'll talk about this when we get to the pitchers too, like a lot of it is just about what contract status is.
Yeah.
Like if guys have options, they're light, unless there is no other choice, they are likely going to use those and start with the guys that they have less flexibility with. Again, I don't have high hopes necessarily in any direction, but I remain intrigued by guys like Carlson and Conforto. They've obviously had success before. The Cubs wouldn't be asking either of them to play a particularly significant role. But if you can catch a little lightning in a bottle, like get back a little of their reformed glory, we've seen proof of concept before. So it's at least intriguing to me. But no, I don't think I have a preference. I think it will be, like I said, again, it's not really a silver lining. Like Seiya is extremely important to this team. And I'm glad that it doesn't seem to be a long-term thing. But he's one of your best slug guys, and they need that. It's not a lineup that is just dripping with a ton of slug at every position. They need him to be in that lineup and hitting 30, 40 home runs in this lineup. But if it's just a small stint, like I said, for these guys, if they broke camp with the team, whether it was one of them or two of them, and Seiya is starting every day and your lineup is cooking and your regulars are playing well and they're out there every day, it's hard for those guys, Brendan. They're asked to, pinch hit occasionally, spot start here and there. And, to really get in a rhythm or figure out what you have there is not super easy in those types of exercises. Now, granted, if this is a 10-day IL stint, it, is a small sample in late March and early April. So what can you draw from that? But at least it, hey, handful of starts in a row, let's see what you got. You want to earn a spot on the team. Here's the time to do it.
Yeah. Sometimes, you look at someone like Kevin Alcantara, who does need major league exposure. You would think by now he had enough and he knows what he needs to do to make the adjustments, particularly against right-handed pitching and those sweepers and breaking pitches he has trouble with. But you look at someone like Alcantara, who you can tell, hey, you have 7 days. You're going to get, 5 to 10 plate appearances. Just focus on the preparation of being a big leaguer. Go through the different pre-game meetings. You're going to be a defensive replacement. Just having that continuous exposure, you never know what that does, especially when you're around veterans such as Alex Bregman and Nico Horner and Dansby Swanson. If I had to, make a decision about who would get that last spot, if Seiya is ultimately IL'd, I would go with Alcantara, and that is mostly driven because of McCormick's 11-day situation, but also to Kevin Alcantara, I think would benefit potentially from that cup of coffee.
Yeah, so we'll see. It was already an interesting spot of this roster, Brendan, and of course, again, hopefully not significant. It doesn't sound like it will be, but this opens up at least a little bit of an opportunity for however the Cubs decide to go about this and how they feel like covering right field in his absence. But hopefully, big sigh of relief. That was a stressful 24 hours.
I handled it really well. I'm serious.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys.
No, I swear to God, I did. I didn't freak out. I looked at the video. I'm being dead serious. I looked at the video. There's a tweet about this. I made it. I said, "Don't worry. It doesn't look bad." And I was completely fine.
That's what I was hoping. I mean, we didn't see any, like, we've all watched, especially football. Like, we've all seen enough non-contact injuries that you're like, okay, that guy's done. I've seen this enough. Like, this is over. And certainly didn't see that. But, him limping, then, we don't hear anything until the morning. Then he's going for the MRI. You're like, oh, man.
No, I was fine. I'm like really proud of myself how I handled that. And I'm going to remember that as the season goes along.
Yeah. We'll see how you handle the next one.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's transition. Well, let's finish talking about the offense. And I ask you this question as we head into the season every year, but we'll finish, talking about the offense. If you're looking at this offense and you could look into the future, and I could tell you that one person in this position player group hits that ceiling, everything you're dreaming of for them on your little chart, the ceiling, they're hitting it. They're doing it.
I'm going to put that chart back up.
If you could pick one player that I can give you that answer on now and tell you, yes, they're going to do that. They're going to hit your dream for their 2026 season. Who do you think the most important person is? Who, if I could tell you that with confidence, you would feel like, all right, this is going to be a good year if I know that going in?
There's so many high ceilings on this team. But if I have to pick one, just one, Pete Crow Armstrong. I want that ceiling. We got a taste of it last year in June, heading into July. The ceiling for Pete is near 10 wins above replacement. That's absurd, Corey. So, I mean, you think about Moises Ballesteros and Matt Shaw hitting their ceilings. Of course, you think of that. But I'm thinking of the best defensive center fielder in Major League Baseball, hitting 40 home runs, stealing 50-plus bases. Yeah, he's my guy. I want to pick Pete for hitting that ceiling.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the natural answer. I think Ballesteros a good answer, too. Like, if you could tell me right now that he settles in, he's the everyday DH, like, he really proves himself and his muster at the MLB level to be at least, maybe not every day, but like, pretty regular designated hitter for this team. I think that would give you a lot of confidence for this lineup. I think my answer is Michael Busch, though.
Oh, that's a good one.
Like, I think if you could tell me right now that he does what he did in 2025 or just continues that growth that he's shown of, jumping into the top 10 in terms of first base production across the league, jumping into the top 5, like if you could guarantee me that he's going to continue to be that player, and I have the confidence that he will, but I think that would make me feel really good going into this year, especially with some of the other guys who have been such consistent producers, to varying levels that we have in this lineup. Like a lot of guys we talk about all the time, we kind of know who they are and what they might do. There's, luck involved. Sometimes guys have a good BABIP year, a bad BABIP year, et cetera, et cetera. But like we have a pretty solid set of information on a handful of these guys. Busch is, coming into, his third, full year here. And I think if you could like lock that in, it would give you a lot of confidence for what this lineup's going to be able to do.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Busch, and you think, okay, you saw the 36 home runs last year. You saw him reach over 40 when you count the postseason experience. Busch has been an interesting follow for me because when he was called up and made his debut with the Cubs in 2020, where are we at now? 2025. Time is ticking by. 2024, rather. When the StatCast metrics came out and swing stuff, we're trying to figure out what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, what projects to be good, what doesn't project to be good. Busch's metrics were a little peculiar, and he has kind of a natural uppercut swing, but the swing is not really that fast. And so when that came out, I'm like, okay, this is kind of interesting. I thought Busch had a better, bat speed than this, but he has a unique ability with that uppercut swing to barrel the baseball. And in some respect, it reminds me of what we saw with guys like Cody Bellinger or guys who just have unique swing playing, but have an uncanny ability to consistently barrel up the ball. I'm curious to see how that plays out for another year. To me, if Busch has another successful year, like what we saw last year, then you may start thinking about, okay, like extension talk, right? locking up someone first base, maybe cost affordable with the age and how first basemen get paid. This could be a really monumental year for the Cubs to lock down a corner position player at a cost affordable rate, given all the circumstances.
Yeah, a lot of guys coming off the books,
That's
potentially,
right.
are you heading into a lockout? We don't know. But you're also looking at a situation where the Cubs may end this year with several guys either
Right.
pre-arb or in, their early arbitration years that you might want to think about, are they cornerstones of this franchise for any significant period of time? So let's hit our second ad break here. And when we come back, we'll keep talking about the offense. And then, of course, we have to transition into some final pitcher spring training thoughts and then digging into our expectations for the pitching staff in 2026.
Okay, you know that feeling when the weather finally breaks, you're heading into the ballpark and everything just feels right? Well, our friends at Sunnyside Dispensary are here to officially elevate your baseball season. What I love about Sunnyside is that it is completely judgment-free, whether you're a seasoned pro or just curious. Their staff is incredible at guiding you through the massive selection. We're talking over 100 different strains to choose from. The best part, it doesn't matter where you are in the state. If you're heading up toward the border in South Beloit or coming up from Champaign for a weekend series, there is Sunnyside on your route. I'm a huge fan of their online ordering. It is seamless, shifted wake, if you will. You just pick your items, swing by for an in-store pickup, and you're back on the road before the first pitch. Head to their website and enter promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. That's HICHGO. Sunnyside Dispensary, only the best under the sun, only for 21 plus or Illinois medical card holders. If you've been waiting for the right moment to upgrade your ride, the wait is over. New vehicles are hitting the lot at Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, and this is your chance to score big during the Declaration of Deal sales event. Head out to Route 12 today. Check out one of their largest inventories in the entire Chicago area, whether you're looking for a rugged Ram, a new Jeep, or a Dodge. They've got it, and right now the numbers are working in your favor. We're talking 0% financing for 60 months on new vehicles. If you're looking for value, they have over 125 vehicles priced under $20,000. But here's why we personally recommend them. They prioritize affordability and transparency. The price you see, that is the price you pay. It is that simple. With the raised price promise, there's no surprise add-ons or hidden fees ever. They've been serving the community since 1963, so you know they aren't going anywhere. Go see the brand experts in Fox Lake or shop online at raycdjr.com. That's Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram on Route 12 in Fox Lake. Tell them we sent you.
All right, Brendan, back with you here. I mean, I think we've talked so much about this offense. I think people kind of know our expectations, but I will say I'm very excited to see, of course, the dynamic that Alex Bregman brings to this lineup. I'm curious to see how Craig deploys this lineup on a regular basis once we get things going and guys, kind of settle in. But, in particular, just having a hitter like Bregman, how he spaces that out with, a hitter like Nico. I'm really looking forward to this group. I don't necessarily expect them to be the best offense in the league, but I think I'm just looking forward to how they work. Brendan, I think this lineup should work pitches. They should work counts. I think hopefully a little better, putting the bat on the ball and making contact in key situations. And I'm looking forward to it. I think on a daily basis, this is going to be an offense that is going to be able to help their pitching staff win games, put up an amount of runs that this pitching staff can work with.
That the pitching staff can work with, and the defensive capability of this team as well. We know Tucker and his bat, losing that is going to hurt the lineup's projectability, no doubt about that. But because you do sign Bregman in the projected 4 to 5 WAR, a lot of that WAR comes in the form of defense. And baseball being the naturally dumb sport it is, and the naturally random sport at times, when you lock in at third base a highly qualified defender, and then you can move someone like Shaw around, let's say dispel Nico for a day, you improve the defensive viability of your entire roster on a day-to-day basis. I am fascinated to see how that plays out in a full 162-game season and see the potential of each and one of those guys' ceiling. I'm interested in Seiya Suzuki's power output. I'm interested in seeing Nico Hoerner maybe boosting his power. I am fascinated by Dansby Swanson's potential changes, which you and I have not talked about, but I am fascinated to see that. And then having a full season, hopefully, of a Miguel Amaya. Carson Kelly came out of the woodworks last year. Miguel Amaya has not had a healthy season yet, and we know the ceiling there when he gets consistent playing time. There's a lot of different roads this team can go down to reach their offensive capability and their potential. And yeah, the projections across the board may not be like what you want from a team that is a bona fide top 3 team, but there is definitely ways to get to that point. And I would not be surprised if some of those guys do take those next leaps.
Yeah. All right, before we move on to pitching, do you have any concerns with the offense?
About the offense?
Yeah.
I don't have concerns with the offense. I would have concerns if we had this type of skeleton, if you will, without the years of precedence. So I know what Ian Happ is. I know what Nico is, and Dansby is, and Bregman is, and even Seiya now to this point. I know what their low point is, and I know what their high point is. So my expectation is an above average offense. My expectation is not of a high caliber offense, but I could see it reaching that point. So no, I don't have concerns. It does leave me wanting more confidence to reach that high caliber profile, but it has just enough to complement the defense and the pitching depth where I'm satisfied. Cool. What about you?
I don't think so. I mean,
No?
you
Not even
always want more slug. But yeah, look, I think this offense has the potential to be very complementary of each other. And I think the Bregman addition really helps that. And as you've said, like, you have several guys, like, if they reach that ceiling, it really changes the way you would think about this. Now, look, that goes the other direction, right? Like, what is their answer if Ballesteros struggles in the opportunities that he's given? What is the answer if some of these depth guys, and you end up in a similar situation to last year where your bench feels like it's somewhat useless? If certain guys, not many teams are set up to withstand long-term injuries. But there's I think a few guys in this lineup, Seiya being one of them. When you're staring at that potential of, limping off the field, you start to ask yourself, like, man, like, this team doesn't have a lot of like bona fide slug up and down the lineup. Like, if he were out a significant period, can they withstand that? How much would they miss that 40 homer potential on a day-to-day basis? But I think as it stands now, I'm excited by the potential. And I think they're going to be a well-rounded group. And, especially adding someone like Bregman in there, we've seen this team get better over the years. And we talked about it. Colin Ray even talked about it in spring training, like getting those fine details right. And those little things on the bases, et cetera, getting runs in from third. And, there's no guarantees, but I do think that adding a guy like Bregman, that kind of, that emphasis that they've had on it every time we hear them talk, I think they're going to be a well-rounded, consistent group, even if they are not a, world beater of a juggernaut of an offense. And maybe they will be at times, but just in an overall sense. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a strong group. And with that, I suppose we can go into the pitchers. I think the first place to start, Brendan, is the depth there. We've talked about it so much and how the Cubs are going to go about this. And I think starting too, it's interesting, we talked about kind of not being particularly concerned about someone like Shota, and he gives up 3 solo home runs to the White Sox. And then, in his most recent start, I think he induced 25 whiffs. Right. So now, you can look up, look up and down the lineup. Like, he's not necessarily facing, he's not a Daniel Palencia situation where he's going through, the absolute best hitters in the world. But it was just a lesson in, like, velo looked good, stuff looked good. Beyond that, like, get me to opening day and we'll see what happens during the regular season. I do want to talk about Taillon, though. I feel like that's become a topic of conversation. And the reason I want to talk about him, Brendan, is because I feel like he's veering into that territory. It's still spring training. I don't care so much about the box score or the line, but he is ticking some of those boxes in that category that we were separating from, like, is this just spring training results? And those boxes might be his velocity, which has not been consistent across the spring. And I think in his most recent start was, as you were telling me, about a mile down from where he would normally like to be. And when you're a guy sitting in the low 90s at this point in your career, sometimes that 1 mile is pretty significant. And at this point, we have several starts where it's not just like several earned runs. Like, he's getting knocked around pretty good. I still am of the belief, like, get to the regular season, especially a veteran. We've seen him go through periods of inconsistency before. But as you're watching Taillon, like, what do you feel about all of that?
I don't feel much. Of course, what you see is not what you want. I don't want to overinterpret a handful of starts in March outside. It's hot. Those are not excuses, but those are nevertheless part of the equation. The velocity being down would be the greatest cause for concern. Then the question comes to mind is, well, how often does that happen for other pitchers? Do they experience similar velo dips ramping up? And the answer is yeah. Is that going to happen to Taillon where the velo comes back right away? I'm not sure. It's absolutely something to monitor. But am I concerned about this? No. I'm looking at the different pitch shapes. The movement profiles look to be about the same. You know, I've obsessed about his four-seam fastball for years and years and years. So that's the first thing I look at when things are not clicking, and his four-seam fastball movement profile was just as normal as it's been for the past 2 years. The last start, 18 inches of induced vertical break, about 6 inches of horizontal. It's where he sits. He's not locating pitches. What is the reason for not locating pitches? That is what he has to figure out. If it was a stuff issue where the sweeper was all out of whack, where the cutter was all out of whack, or the changeup completely bled into a sinker, then I'd be sitting here being like, okay, I am a little concerned. But you're not seeing that. It's a command issue. It's a handful of starts. If you're a betting person, I wouldn't bet on a handful of spring starts, especially on a savvy veteran like Taillon. Not saying it's going to be fine. Not saying to not monitor it. This is absolutely a trend to monitor, but it does not give me immense cause for concern.
Yeah. So reading a quote from him, I think in the Chicago Tribune, he said, "I'm always tinkering behind the scenes, and it's a fine line of tinkering to stay sharp or tinkering to mess yourself up. And right now I've tinkered a little bit and messed myself up. And now it's just about tinkering to get back to where I know I can be." It's probably the most times I've said tinkering in a short period of time. But, like, ultimately, this goes back to when we were talking about the position players. Like, they're going to give him the shot. Like, once you decide you're moved on from this, you've moved on from it. He's a veteran. Like, you can't send him down. Like, so he's going to get the shot to start. And I would say, we'll see what he does in the regular season. He's battled inconsistency and as he said, made those adjustments before, and I would give him the opportunity to do so. What's going to be interesting, Brendan, and we can transition into the overall rotation and depth, is, of course, Craig Counsell and the front office, they don't care what the fans think, but this is going to be a situation where, like, one bad start, it's just going to be a nonstop flood of Ben Brown should start, Javier Assad should start. What are they doing throwing Taillon out there? That kind of thing. And so it's good to have that depth. And that'll be interesting to see, like, not necessarily just with Taillon or, Colin Ray should get this next start. Like, what are they doing? Right. It's going to be interesting because that pressure is going to be there. You do have some interesting options. So if guys do struggle,
of course,
Taillon, even people had their, concerns about Shoto. We'll see how that goes, especially after the injury last year. Like, those calls are going to be loud.
Again, we've had this conversation so many times.
Craig Counsell doesn't care, but it is just going to be one of those things, like, as the fan base goes, like, immediately.
Of course. Listen, dude, we've had this discussion even about Taillon 3 years ago. Every year we have this discussion. It was Kyle Hendricks. It was Jameson Taillon. Everyone always takes a little bit of a step back And all of a sudden, they normalize. We had this discussion about Shota last year and the velo and the physicality, and now he's throwing 93 in March. Sometimes you can't predict this stuff. Sometimes for them, they can't predict it either, and they find themselves. That's part of being a veteran. That's why they're even pitching at this age. They find themselves. So to come on and be like, oh, yeah, I am concerned about Jameson Taillon. I can't be. I'm not going to say I'm confident. Of course not. Sure. But I'm not going to like lose sleep over it. This is a guy in his mid-30s who's now in his 4th year as a Cub. He's figured it out before. We should not be having this conversation on March 19th. That's a dumb conversation to have.
I agree with you. And, you know, again, like with some of these guys, they're going to get the runway, whether people have written them off in March in Cactus League play or not. Like, they're going to get the runway. He's the veteran. You're not sending him down. Like, he was their best starter in the playoffs 6 months ago. Like, I'm watching the spring training games too. Like, I see him getting knocked around. Like, we're all aware of this. I see the velo. Like, of course, we pay attention to it. But at the beginning of the year, with so long to go, and we've seen the ebb and flow of how many pitchers you need, the revolving door sometimes of how many guys end up taking a few starts just to get through a 162 game season. Like, you gotta, that you talked about this too with other guys. Like, there's an opportunity cost of cutting bait too quickly with some of these guys. We know Jameson Taillon can be a quality starter at this level. If you give up on it too quickly, you don't give yourself the opportunity to get him back to that. And there's other guys, for as much as I like some of these other options, they have not shown you that at the MLB level. You'd be hoping that they can get there. So I love the depth, but for now, you got to go with the guys that you're expecting and that have that track record to be at that level. So I want to train with this too much on Taillon, but I did want to at least, start on that. So what I want to do now, I want to go to our new segment, The Original Take, that is brought to you by Hooters. Cheer on your favorite teams from any of the 11 Chicagoland Hooters locations, or check them out at originalhooters.com, a perfect place to head if you were looking for your March Madness viewing over the weekend. Go Blue in this house. We support the Michigan Wolverines. But, like, I want your take. Who ends this season as the ace of this staff?
That's an easy one.
Matthew Boyd starting on Friday. He was great. He was the best pitcher on this team for a good portion of 2025. Cade Horton, unprecedented second half. Edward Cabrera coming over, the great potential there. You're going to say Cade Horton. We can just skip to that, but I'm posing it as a question.
Well, I'm just going to, do my Cade Horton little shoulder jersey wipe thing. Cade Horton 100 times. There are certain pitchers I gravitate to. There are certain pitchers you gravitate to, Corey. My pitchers tend to be a little overconfident, a little arrogant on the mounds. They have phenomenal mound presence, and they throw fastballs that typically you just don't see many other guys throw. That is Cade Horton. That was Jake Arrieta. I see the similar mentals between those two. I absolutely love the way Cade stands on the mound. And that intensity, I did not expect, translated to a rapid adjustment to develop two new pitch types, a sinker and a changeup, which he used a quarter of the time to left-handed batters last year. That is the most important aspect of his season last year for me, was the ability to use that changeup often. So here's a guy who has 4+ pitch types, who's entering his first full year under his belt with experience and health, with that mindset. Oh my God, absolutely. Cade Horton's going to be that ace. That's how I think about it.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I just thought it was fun to give the other guys a chance, just in case you wanted to say somebody else.
But I mean, it is encouraging to see Shota looking good. We talk about trends and good things in spring and bad things in spring. Of all the trends, I think Shota's among the most encouraging so far.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting. The offense and the rotation sort of feel a little similar to me, in that you might not look at them as that like certain top level group, but there's like so much potential there. Yeah. I think, you need those guys to break through and get up to that level. But they just have such potential to do that. And then you talk about that depth. It is going to be useful. They're going to have to lean on it. And it's good that they have interesting options and exciting options in case you do need to replace a guy, or you need spot starts, or guys get hurt, et cetera, et cetera. I know Ben Brown in his most recent outing only went an inning, but he, at least talking, has more confidence in himself. He's worked on that sinker. That's interesting. I don't know if we should read into him only pitching an inning the other day. He's been stretched out previously. We'll see what the deal is with that. Colin Ray was really good for the Cubs last year. Javier Assad, I know a lot of fans want to see him get more opportunities on the regular. But yeah, I'm feeling good about the rotation, especially, you never know how somebody comes back, but it's always nice that, at some point Justin Steele's just going to show up.
Right.
And not to use front office speak, but it's that's basically going to be like us trading for a frontline starting pitcher. Just putting that, you'll hear somebody say that at some point from the Cubs front office or Craig Counsell.
Probably.
Yeah, 100%. But it is a big deal. I mean, potentially at some point, in the early-ish middle of the season, you're going to get back a really significant pitcher. And we've heard him, he is ready to pitch in the playoffs. He doesn't care that he's missing opening day. That man wants the ball in October. And, Brendan, I'll go out on a limb. I'd like to see him get it. I really would.
You know what's funny about what you what's funny about what you just said is you feel similar about the offense and pitching. And in many ways, so do I. But in reality, the projections we see, Bakota, Fangraphs, Zips, the projections are muted, dampened, not because of the offense. The offense in the positional group, they project very tight, because they have so much experience, 5 years for all these guys. The pitchers' projections suck. They think Cade's going to be around a 4 ERA, Cabrera 4 ERA, right? The reason is weighing 2023 and 2024. And in baseball and pitching's rapid evolution over the past couple of years, we know that 2023 and 2024 isn't relevant right now. Cade Horton had a side injury in 2024. We know he didn't even have those 2 pitches back then, right? So it's not to discount the projections. They are useful. They're a starting point. You cannot ignore them. It's useful to interpret why they think like that and reapproach the way you and I talk about this team. So like you, I have a lot of high hopes and big ceilings for the pitching staff. I do think I'm still a little bit more confident on the positional side, but I also see a lot of ways that this pitching group can match the offense because you have 9 guys in the rotation right now who could hit their ceiling. You have 20 pitchers, literally 20 pitchers who may contribute to this team at some point this year.
Yeah, I do think of it it feels like a very, to use a phrase I've already used, it feels like a well-rounded group, Brendan, where really on both sides, there's questions of who is the star, the certain kind of star.
Well, it's Cade Horton.
Yes. But
that's right.
And we talk about the projections, et cetera. But I just think, and this is putting it very simply, I do just feel on a daily basis, they're going to have enough offense, solid enough pitching, and some of the best defense the league has to offer to win baseball games. They may not, and it ebbs and flows throughout the season. They may not be, again, a juggernaut level of a team, but I just think they're going to be a very solid all-around baseball team in each and every facet of the game. And maybe at times it might be unexciting. And we're not going to see stretches like we see with the Dodgers and some of the numbers that they put up or did last year, but it just feels like a well-rounded group. They're going to do little things well and be competitive to win baseball games. It's a simple sort of thing. But, you contrast that, like we always go back to 2016, of course, when the Cubs win the World Series.
World Series, correct, yes.
Like that team was blowing the cover off the ball like every other night, doing something spectacular like on a daily basis. And, this team will have those moments as well. PCA is going to be good for some of them. You can take that to the bank. But this team just doesn't have, to me, that type of feel. But they do have the feel of like they're going to play a good brand of baseball and give themselves a real shot to win a significant chunk of games, I think.
Their entire roster on the field has a gold glove. I'm counting Seiya Suzuki's gold glove in Japan, by the way.
Luke Stuckmeyer says that doesn't translate.
Okay. So. Well, we can't argue with the Grammy Award winner over there.
He got a Grammy now. Halfway to an EGOT.
Yeah, well, an Emmy. Yeah,
his local Emmys. Yeah.
I get those all mixed up.
Now we're going to get a video on Monday of him singing because you said he won a Grammy.
Oh my God. Anyway, but the defense and the base running is a staple, and that is part of their projections as well. That's why you have Bregman, Nico, Dansby at 4+. Where I look at this pitching is the number of options, and I'm not saying, okay, Cade Horton's going to be a 200-inning guy like what we saw from Lester and Arrieta back then. No, but 170 innings, absolutely feasible. And that's valuable when you start layering on the other 7 options. For instance, let's look at the depth chart. So we have Cade Horton, Matthew Boyd, Shota Imanaga, Edward Cabrera, Jameson Taillon as your slotted 5 guys to start opening day. Colin Ray, Javier Assad, those are 2 starting pitching options that probably will be on the team. Ben Brown may be that fringe guy. He's maybe the 14th guy and the odd man out going to AAA just to maintain being stretched out. That's 8 starting pitchers. And then you have Justin Steele. Well, that would be the 9th starting pitching option if he comes back in, let's say, late May or June. I even think they may go out and get one more starter if their existing options are not progressing or showing the capacity that they want. Vince Velasquez is someone Craig Counsell's talked about. Yes, Vince Velasquez. I had him on my fantasy baseball team, I think 10 years ago. Right. They've had so many guys who've had success in the past that may end up throwing innings. What you're seeing on the screen right now is over 20 pitchers. And this is a luxury that we have not felt before 2025. We had similar conversations last year about this pitching staff, and it actually did work out to the Cubs' benefit due to injuries because Hodge went down and Steele went down. Palencia stepped up. Colin Ray stepped up. We know what it's like to have quality depth. And this year, in some respect, I actually feel like we have even more depth. And the Cubs have learned from their experience bringing in guys last year, coaching certain pitchers where maybe they can get more value. Maybe you can multiply the Chris Flexens by 2. Instead of getting 30 innings from a Flexen type, you get 60 innings. And I can see myself talking about Chris Flexen years from now because that was so valuable, having 30 innings before he was DFA'd last year. That, to me, of everything on this roster, is the most encouraging and interesting aspect.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there. I think the one thing too, talking about maybe they're not this juggernaut or whatever, but they have the potential to be, Brendan. Yeah. And some of these guys, maybe they don't realize it this year. Some of them, it may take more time than that, et cetera. But you see the potential in Cade Horton continuing to develop into that frontline ace level starting pitcher. You obviously know the potential of Cabrera coming over and his pitch types and what he brings to the table. And could he get to that level? We've seen Shota lead the majors in ERA for a significant period. Matthew Boyd was one of the best starters in the league for the first 4 months of the season.
Javier Assad's career ERA is around 3.5 as a starter and almost 450 innings.
Yeah, you go to the offense. If PCA hits the ceiling you're talking about and is an 8, 9, 10 win player, Michael Busch continues what he's doing. Our guy Niren talking about it in the YouTube chat. Moises Ballesteros grabs that DH spot and never lets go. And, we see that hit tool that we've seen carry him through the minors take hold at the MLB level.
Shaw develops as a utility guy, that Zobrist-esque
to go along with the consistency and what you expect of Alex Bregman and Nico Horner and Ian Happ and Dansby Swanson. You can see it. It's a lot of ifs, right? And some of that stuff can go poorly. And we've talked about the contingency plans that the Cubs have in place to combat some of those things. But you can see it. And I don't know, like, it doesn't feel like you have to squint too hard to do it. Like, all of that happening is a lot, especially in, just in 2026. But some of it, at least, developing in that way. We're going to go to overtime here. It's our last episode before the regular season. So if you're watching on fast channels, please head over to YouTube and we will finish the rest of our regular season preview there. Been a while since we went to overtime.
Oh, listen, the season's around the corner.
We're not ready to go. Not go. But yeah, I mean, like, you can see it. So, getting into, like, as we hit overtime here, I mean, really what I'd want to hit here is just like what you expect for this season. And it's a long season. Things change. Some of the guys we're talking about now, we won't be talking about come September, hopefully October. And there's probably people we aren't aware of yet that may have as you said, I don't think any of us were expecting Chris Flexen or Drew Pomeranz to be significant guys we were thinking about, or Andrew Kittredge, right? But things change and whatever. But just general, like, expectations. I'll start with this. Do they win the division? Do we get over the hump? Do they win the National League Central Division?
I think yes. I think right now you have a realistic chance where you can handle an injury. Let's say you do suffer an injury where you have a guy miss 6 weeks. I think that is enough. They have enough depth to cover those injuries. I would not have said that last year, and definitely not the year before. The way I interpret winning the division as a projection is, how can you handle an injury? And this team, this roster, has built-in depth possibilities that they can withstand that. So yes, I do believe they win the division.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. I mean, they have to. Like, they have to. They that can't keep happening. Look, like last year, you can't control if Milwaukee wins, what was it, like 29 of 35 games. I expect them to be a good team. I've gotten long past underestimating them. I think that's obviously, they've proven time and time again, that's a bit of a fool's errand. I don't have too much expectations from the rest of the division, but, some of these teams don't figure to be dreadful as they've been in the past. And, you can certainly draw it up every time the Cubs play Pittsburgh. They're going to draw Paul Skeens. I can already tell you that. That's just how it works. Yeah. Somehow he's always available when they play the Cubs. But I do expect them to win the division. I think they're the best team in this division. They have the resources, if they get to the deadline and need to improve their standing. And, look, I don't know exactly how the organization feels, but they have a lot of money coming off the books. We don't know the status of the CBA going into the future, et cetera, et cetera. Doesn't necessarily mean you completely sell out to win in 2026 and just, gut the farm system more than they have. But I would expect them to take this year as quite a serious opportunity to win. And I think that I expect them to win the division. I think this is the year they get over the hump. They're a very good team. They're a very well-rounded team. And by the sound of it, they're quite hungry to get over that hump. They don't seem content having made the playoffs, knocked out the Padres. Like, I'm not getting any patting themselves on the back for that. They have more work to do, and they seem intent on doing it.
Was there a lesson last season that you learned that you can apply this year? What was the unexpected areas from the Cubs last year that shocked you or surprised you that is kind of at the forefront of your brain and thinking when you enter opening day this year? I have several. I'm just curious what you think.
I mean, I think it's just sort of preparing for how, drastically baseball changes. Mm-hmm. I think the way that, like, Kyle Tucker performed in the first few months paired with the way PCA was performing for those first few months, I had delusions of grandeur that I can barely explain to people of what I thought was going to go on. And And so I think it's just, and of course, we know this. I didn't learn this last year, but just a reminder of like baseball changes on a dime.
Yeah.
And, you can have guys that are the best in the league for short spurts of time, and sometimes it doesn't last. And I think, just sort of remembering that, and I think and this has nothing to do with Tucker. It has everything to do with Alex Bregman and what he's done throughout his career. That's something that excites me about him in particular. He's been such a consistent guy. And even if that production is not what Tucker's peak can be, like adding more of that consistency, he's not the same player as Nico Horner, but in that same vein of just like, this guy goes about the job a certain way, and they'll have slumps, they'll have hot streaks just like anybody else, but like day in, day out, like they are so consistent and they bring that steadiness to the lineup. So that's the first thing that jumps out. I'm curious to hear what jumped to your mind.
I think I alluded to this in a previous episode. I forgot which one, but more than ever, I'm not trusting my opinions. And what I mean by that is
good, because I haven't for years. Yeah.
what I mean by that is I was so surprised how Pete's power evolved last year. I was really surprised how Bush, when you factor in the playoffs, hit over 40 home runs. I've been surprised how Kyle Schwarber has developed over the years. And I look at ceilings and floors a little bit more open-minded. And I think in years past, how I've talked about this team in baseball is I've operated more as if the let's say like the average projection was always the likely one. And I don't know if that was the right way of viewing the team. So I look at this team right now, they're projected to win 90 wins. In years past, I would say, 90? Like, I need 94. Like, are you kidding? Like, I can't do 90. I'm a little different this year. And it's because I recognize, like, to your point, the sport is changing really rapidly. And what I learned last year with Pete and Bush and Cade Horton is a great example, is the sport's really changing. And so I'm just kind of taking a step back and just watching, experiencing, and learning, and not trying to get my brain in the way and like letting things ruin like the experience. And I say this as someone who really tries to like understand what's going on.
Yeah.
I genuinely believe more than ever, we really don't have a grasp as much as we would like. I do think we had more of a grasp 7-6 years ago. I do think it was easier to understand and project the immediacy. I don't think you can do that as confidently in this day and age.
Is the over under? I like that a lot. It's a good point. Is there over under actually 90? Is that the betting line?
Well, Pacoda's at 90. I don't know what
okay.
the Vegas line.
It's like, give me the over on that.
Yeah,
they're doing it. Come on, they're running it.
I mean, so here's the thing: like Pacoda had a higher projection for the Cubs last year, going into 2025. It's weird because the entire perception from the fans is this team is way better than last year. But Pacoda had them as a better record last year. 2016, Pacoda had them as a 92-win team entering the year. They won 103 games, and if they had the 162nd game, they may have won 104 games.
Yeah,
it's very difficult to project the sport, and it's more difficult now than ever when you have tons of data being acquired and pitchers are talking the same language. I remember Tom Tango, dude who invented like FIP, right?
The book,
right? So I used to read his like blog back then, like 2008, 2009. And there was a sentence in the blog. It always stuck with me. And he said, like, to paraphrase, at some point, the players and the statisticians, they'll all be speaking the same language in the scouts. And so when I go watch guys do bullpens, like legit Major League Baseball players, you think I'm a nerd, Corey? These guys talk about the sport way nerdier than I talk about the sport, and they're out there throwing 95 miles per hour.
Well, just make sure they're not in Joe Madden's dugout. So.
Yeah, that's right. But that's the point I'm making is like I use that example, those players and how they interpret the game and train themselves. You're going to get unexpected performances in the extreme fashion more than ever, I think.
Yeah, look, I mean, bookending, like going back to our conversation about Daniel Palencia, like there are certainly people that believed in him. He believed in himself. He had to get to that point. But sometimes we can look through all the scouting reports, especially when these guys are young, draft reports, high school, college, all that other stuff. Like sometimes the humans rise above. Like for as much as we can rely on that data, and it can be like guys are a sure thing or like no chance. Sometimes you just got to bet on the human beings, and like they surprise you. Like it doesn't always work that way. Everybody on every team is not a former number one pick, they're not a former top prospect or someone like
except this team. They all have like
yeah, right, exactly. The Cubs do have 1 million first round picks, so they are a bit of a unique
not the pitchers though. How about that?
Well, and that's the point. That's why they're going to be so good. No, yeah, like it's a very interesting game. It's the sport of baseball is different than others for that reason. Is that there is a lot of, call it randomness, but just in a small sample, truly anything can happen. But I'm looking forward to it. I really do think that this is going to be a fun year for the Cubs. I think they have a ton of potential. Am I sitting here expecting them to win the World Series? Like, I don't know. Going back to the lessons we learned from last year, like I think more than ever, and we know this, and Theo Epstein has said it, and that's who I take most of my baseball gospel from. Like, you just got to get to the dance. Yeah. You need a ticket to the dance. That is what matters. And because I think so much about like how stressed we were toward the end of the year of like who's going to make the starts, or even earlier in the year, the way that we thought about guys in the rotation or guys in the lineup. And, come those games with the Padres and the Brewers, like it's completely different. Everything is out the window. Every game is its own little vacuum that you're going through. And guys that you trusted in July with your life, you wouldn't trust with anything come those games in October, and vice versa. Guy, if I had told you, hey man, you're going to think Andrew Kittredge is the guy you'd want to have the ball more than almost anyone else in spring training last year, right? I could tell everybody, I promise you, you will want nobody on the team to have the ball besides Brad Keller, right? You believe that when you read that signing on like MLB trade rumors? No chance. Yeah. So just a lesson in like, it's very possible that we get to the end of the year and the Cubs make noise in the playoffs. They go to the World Series, they win the World Series, and it's on the back of Cade Horton, Justin Steele, and Alex Bregman. Just as you might draw it up, it's equally as possible that those names are Javier Assad, Moises Ballesteros, and Matt Shaw. You know what I mean? Like it's just the game of baseball. It's just how it works. So I'm looking forward to it though. Like I do have raised expectations, like whether that is a smart thing to do, I don't know. But I do think it's time they get over the hump. They take their division back, and they put a lot of work into this team. They've sold a bit. They've traded their top prospect. They put a lot into this team, and I do think they pay it off. To what degree, I don't know. Talk to me in September, but I think this is going to be a fun season, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, and you would want to see some minor league development too, just organizationally wide. Everything feels healthy. If you want to be picky, you get some of the minor leaguers developed as well. I think, and I wanted to hear your opinion before we sign off, I would take the over on 90. I would take the over on 91. I take the over on 92. I take the over on 93. Like, I think this is a mid-90s win team. I believe this is what you think.
I was going to say we're veering it. So for those of you that weren't with us when we were, just the Cubs related podcast on our own, especially the Rizzo era Chicago Cubs, Brendan and I had a unfortunate habit, call it, of basically just expecting them to win 115 games a year. You can go back to any of those episodes if they're still in the archive, like when we would do the preseason preview. Like, yeah, I think they win 100 again. Yeah. Yep. Chris Bryant, John Lester. Yeah, they'll win 105 maybe this time. So
yeah, maybe 100.
Didn't go that well.
No,
after 2016, but we would predict it every time.
And listen, we're a week away from opening day.
I do it again. Yeah.
That's right. This is also like the happiest, most optimistic time like ever in a week leading up to opening day. So, I guess discount some points on the opinion and the takes there. But I do believe that unlike the 2016 team, it's the number of options. And that's why I think 94. I'm not going to dive in on the nuance of Corbin Martin. I know what he's doing. I know the velocity's down, but I'm not going to dive in on the nuance. I'm looking at as one of many options. I'm looking at Jacob Webb. We can talk about Jacob Webb's stuff, right? But I'm not relying on it. I'm interested in it. Colin Snyder, Ryan Rollison, and the names go on and on and on. And if you're just a casual listener and you're not following the team, like those are pitchers who may pitch significant innings. They have a lot of those guys. And that is why I think, given the recent Cubs track record on developing guys, I think they can inch towards the mid-90s, and I would not be surprised whatsoever.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, what do you got? Give me a win number.
I like 94. I feel all right about that.
All right. I'm going 95. I can't pick the same number as you. I'll go 95. Okay. I'm the more optimistic one, right? Sometimes.
Yeah. Sarah, our producer, says 89.
Come on, Sarah. She's having a bad night. We're on overtime. She wants to go home.
She's keeping us, in check. But
you guys were, our friend Edward says, you guys were chugging the Kool-Aid back then.
Yes, we were.
Yes, we were.
Yeah, we were.
Yes, we were.
Yeah. Yes, we were. I legitimately, at certain points, just expected them to win like 3 straight titles. So
yeah. Well, I told this to you like offline. The happiest moment of my life was Albert Amora hitting a game 1 home run off Kershaw to go up 2-0 in game 1 of the NLCS. I thought this is it. All my dreams are coming true.
It did feel legitimately like, we're like living in like a Chicago Bulls, New England Patriots situation. Like they're just going to run through this again. Yeah,
that's right. Yep.
Anyway, so Luke, Joey, Justin, the wonderful rest of our CHGO Cubs team will have you covered to start the week. In leading up to opening day, we'll have your opening day coverage. Can turn to CHGO Cubs in any form or fashion throughout the 162 game season. And we will have you covered post games, breaking news, analysis, et cetera, whatever it is that I bring to the table. I'll be there next Thursday. Matthew Boyd on the mound against the Washington Nationals, and off we go. So we appreciate you sticking with us through the sometimes slow off season, the exhibition games of spring training. But a week from right now, the Cubs will already have won. The W will be flying over beautiful historic Wrigley Field, and all will be right in the world. So we appreciate your support as always. Looking forward to a very fun 2026 regular season for the Chicago Cubs. And with that, as always, go Cubs.
We all silly like the mayor.